Brittany, John, welcome to the program.
Hey,
Woohoo!
Colin.
Let's go.
Hey, all three of us, we literally, all three of us just got back from spending time together in Los Angeles for the ViVE 2024 conference. I've been dying to ask you this question. What did you guys think of it from a marketing perspective?
Well, it's funny that you say that we were together because we weren't. We were kind of all over the place. I think we each have our own experience, which is kind of nice too, I guess. But
I was gonna say we couldn't hop on a call there, but we can hop a call when we couldn't get together there, but we can now get together once we're back.
yeah, we ended up eating different food, so we weren't even sitting together then. But
True.
That's
no, but I
that's
mean,
very true.
obviously, Vive puts on a great production. There's no doubt they know how to execute a conference. They know how to make the experience great in that regard. I think there were some interesting comments I heard from CIOs that I talked to, and kind of discussion like, do we need all of this? And I think there is kind of this healthcare. Are we wasting money on some production that wasn't really needed, didn't really benefit them? And I asked some CIOs about that, and they're like, for me, no, I don't need this, right? Like, and so anyway, it will be interesting to see how that evolves. It's kind of the identity of Vive, so I'm not sure how they get away from that, but there was a bit of a feeling it's like, oh, this excess, well, many people have travel bans and many people are suffering from costs, feels a little odd, so I know many of the CIOs were like, I don't want a picture at, Billy Idol, that I share with my team that, this feels a little off too. So I think there's a little bit of mixed feelings in that, especially with some of the challenges that organizations face.
Yeah, I would have to agree in terms of if you look at the overarching branding, everything was on point. Everything came together, everything was seamless. Everywhere you went, the branding was there, everything flowed together really well. And kind of, it was like a nice puzzle piece to have all of that branding kind of cohesively come together. But I did have myself, as a marketer, we think of like, oh, if I were to do this at my conference, how much would it cost? So I see, these pillars and these signs and the
The
staircase with
stairs.
the branding on it. And you think, holy, like, I wonder what the budget was for this conference.
No, and actually we had a guest come on and talk about this, right? Dr. Ori from the ANA, the American
Mm.
Nursing Association, came on and talked about, some of the memes that were going around the excess of some of the healthcare conferences, not just ViVE, but just healthcare conferences in general. Do we need them? Does anything really happen at these conferences that really move the needle? And I thought she had a very interesting response, which doesn't quite answer your question, John, and your comment, Brittany, but she's saying, well, the conference itself is not the point. The conference is really a vehicle for people to get together, and it's the people who are going to move the needle. And so there's no other way for these people to have gotten together. There's no Zoom call, there's no virtual thing that could generate the ideas, the connections that these conferences do. So what she was saying is that the conference itself is not a waste of time. It is complete valuable investment of time, was what she was saying. But I think to both of your points, do we need all the other stuff to accomplish that goal? I think in some ways ViVE has carved out that unique position with the branding, with everything that makes me want to go to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that sense, maybe it is helping. But you're right. I mean, do we need I won't say gourmet food because it wasn't gourmet, but do we need to go to that excess and for a conference like this? The answer maybe we'll see.
It's funny you bring up the food because I was actually going to comment that I think that's a good addition because breaking bread with people or waiting in line for your pizza at the food truck is a chance for you to network with some different people, meet some different people because it is about the people. And I'll give credit to Vive. They had a wide variety, much better than Health. Health, there was quite a bit of complaints about the food. I think Vive, there was still some waits for food trucks. I think that's a feature of food trucks. But there was four other options that you could choose from. There were these bowls that were easy to take, so there was a lot of different options. There was a healthy option, etc. So you weren't going to go away. And of course, I got a thing of garlic Parmesan fries, and I think I had 5 people say, "Hey, what are those?" So it was a chance to connect with someone, and they were worth every wait that I did for those. Those are delicious. So
So
I
so
totally
it
agree.
sounds like
I like the food option. I think people were talking about how it was a bit far away for their liking, but I got my additional steps in, so that's totally fine. But I like that you could pick and choose. So I think one day I did the food trucks, the bowls, and the salads. So
nice. No, and let's I mean I give kudos to them too. Like the fact that they had food, it was included with part of
Mhm.
your as an attendee or as a sponsor. And that's really nice, especially with controlling costs, right? Now you don't have to worry about like, do I have to run over to like, Jimmy John's or something and incur extra cost and those expenses. It's all included in the package that you get from Vive. Which is nice because then there's cost certainty for everybody, right? I know my lunch and breakfast is paid for. I don't have to go outside to get that kind of thing. So that is kind of nice.
yeah, let alone if they go to Fleming's and get the $100-$200 meal and try to expense it, or and then they're away from the conference, which is a big problem too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the exhibit hall for a second because we did spend some time in the exhibit hall. What did you guys think about the hall?
I have a few comments about the hall. So I saw, I think I mentioned before a little bit bigger booths than I was expecting. I think I was expecting smaller booths at ViVE, but there was a few folks kind of in the middle who had bigger booths. As an attendee, I don't like the booths that have those enclosed meeting rooms in them. I feel like it just closes off um it closes it off to anybody who wants to come in your booth. So if there's people sitting inside, it kind of just gives me the vibe that like, oh, they're doing work or doing something, and I think it just closes off the booths, and I don't really like that style of booth. So, and I saw quite a few people who had those booths. Now, maybe they couldn't get additional meeting space, and that's why they included it in their booth. But it's just I didn't really enjoy that portion of the booths. But I did see a lot of pink and purple booths. Now, who knows? Are people stealing our colors? Maybe we need to do another rebrand. I don't know.
I think not. No, but
Yeah,
you're right.
it's
There
like,
are a
no,
lot of
let's
colors
not.
like that. It was interesting too that Vive offers some kind of prefab booths
Hmm.
where it's just a flat wall that they print something on, and I think they even design it for you, or you provide the design. I'm not sure which, and then there was a counter or table or something like that that you could put some stuff on, which it makes sense why a lot of marketers want to go for that. It's just easier. But like I remember I was talking with one, and it was prefabbed. They had a 10 by 10, the other one had a 10 by 20 next to them, but the prefab went straight into the other wall. And I was like, "Oh, are you guys partners? Did you do this booth together?" And they're like, "Oh no, we're not partners. It was just we bought the prefab. They did too, I guess." And so there was almost not a distinction between the two. And I was like, "Oh, are you partners?" And no, it turns
Yeah,
out
I
they
remember
weren't.
seeing
So
that.
there wasn't a distinction between some of the booths. But interestingly enough, I didn't hear anyone complain about it because I actually, I mean, that was the number one comment I heard from most vendors is that the booth traffic, there wasn't a lot of providers coming as far as booth traffic. And then they would always follow it up with, but the hosted buyer meetings have been quite good. Now they
Mhm.
ask the question: is there enough capacity in hosted buyer meetings? Can they get us the meetings we want? But that was kind of a universal thing I heard from a lot of exhibitors. The booth traffic not so good, but the hosted buyer meetings were great. The exception was someone who wants to sell to vendors. I heard a couple of those that they kind of sell to other health IT companies. They did really well, so they liked the booths.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to again give kudos to the Vive organizers. The prefab booth idea is fantastic. I think it does save costs, especially for people who don't have a booth that they want to ship. So printing one and getting one printed there is fine, is a great option, and they do a really good job. It does look very branded and
Yeah.
very bright, and it's well done. So that is really good. I heard the same thing in the hall that in the sense that the hosted buyer meetings are the reason. I think that's where most of the leads and most of the connections seem to happen from a business perspective at Vive. And so again, kudos to them for continuing that tradition. And again, this year the feedback was universally positive with those meetings. Everyone really seemed to enjoy connecting with folks in those kinds of settings. Um, but the traffic was a little light. And I think that's a fault not of ViVE, but just of the venue, right? Like it's just because everything was so divided and in different levels and different places, it was just hard to get people into the exhibit hall.
I'm not sure CIOs want to go to booths anyways, right? They go there if they know you. They don't necessarily are browsing,
True.
you know, especially CIOs, which ViVE is largely focused on the CIO. Maybe some of their other people will go and do that more so than the CIO would. So, you know, we definitely see that happening. I think it will be interesting to see how it evolves, right? And whether the booths are a focus, whether the hosted buyer meetings are a focus, because you know, one vendor said to me something really interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts since you've done so many conferences. They said there's a lot of serendipity involved in a conference, right? Like, and someone was like, yeah, I bumped into Best Buy Healthcare, and that's actually a really good connection for me, and I wouldn't have had that otherwise. It's like, but it's a little bit serendipity that they did bump into each other. So, you know, like I think that's the challenge with conferences is there is a fair bit of, you know, I like serendipity better than luck, but they're kind of similar.
Those bigger booths would had these meeting pods in them. I didn't visit any of those booths. I visit mostly of the 10 by 10s because they were welcoming. You could walk by them and, you know, chat with people a lot easier as well.
We have to mention the parties too. You know, there were a lot of great parties and connections that were happening with people. You know, there's a trend that I think we've observed at a number of conferences with companies coming together. You know, there were 6 companies coming together to do a party, you know, at the same place, their partners or whatever. A couple that, you know, had smaller, more intimate gatherings with their clients where it was just one company. But I'd say the majority of the parties were combined with multiple companies, which I think is an interesting evolution. And you know, luckily we all made it there. I didn't hear of any incidents in LA, so that was good.
Final question for the both of you. Quick thumbs up, thumbs down for ViVE 2024.
I'll be there at 2025. So,
all right, we got 2 thumbs up. So overall, it seems like you guys thought it was a really good conference. Well, hey, listen, thanks to both of you for taking the time. I can't wait to see you at the next conference because that's when I'm going to see you in person next. But really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.